Great day, everyone. Welcome to LEADJITSU Rise in the Dojo, the show where we help leaders gain influence and insight so that they can really begin to think about their influential impact that they have on everyone around them and everyone that they serve. So, if you're ready, I'm ready. Let's rise. All right. So, good morning, everyone. Welcome to another episode of LEADJITSU Rise in the Dojo. We're super excited that you're here. And today's topic is going to be about change equals opportunity. We're going to dive all into the details of that. But first, I want to say good morning to my senpais. Good morning, Marae. How are you?
Good morning. I am fantastic and looking forward to this show.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Good morning, Roz.
Good morning. Good morning. I'm so happy to be here from the,
Awesome.
from the beginning.
From the beginning. We know how technology is, but thank goodness the technology gods are smiling on us this morning. We're super excited about our show today. We've got an incredibly special guest here with us today. So we're going to I'll introduce James W. Keys, who is a former CEO of Fortune 500 organizations such as 7-11 and Blockbuster. He's known as a transformational leader and a social change agent. He's very passionate about education and has written a book. I want to make sure that all of you see that. Education is freedom. So we're going to dive into that a little bit as well. And he also is a firm believer that change is important. And he knows a lot about leading through change. So thank you for being here with us, Jim. Is it okay if we call you Jim?
Absolutely. Good morning. It's great to be with you.
Good morning. We're going to dive into our conversation. We've got a lot that we want to cover today. But first,
Sure.
We do a few things. We do our breathing techniques. But I want to ask you first, as we get started, before we do our breathing, can you summarize what education means to you?
Education was completely the path to virtually everything in my life that gave me the freedom to do what I do today. Education is freedom, literally is my life. And I'll get into the story later, but it is the key to unlock doors for opportunity. It is my roadmap to the world, and it allows me to mix with cultures all over the world to be a global citizen, as opposed to living in one small area and being surrounded by people just like me. Um, it is truly the difference that it made in my life between living a full life and a rich life uh, and and being just alive.
Wow. Thank you. Thank you so much for that. So that's a little bit of a teaser. That's why you all need to stay around. But first, we're going to go in and we're going to do our breathing. So we know that breathing, when we take deep breaths and we inhale, we are flooded with billions of oxygen molecules. Slows our rates down, lowers our blood pressure, allows us to focus. And really, it's a technique that is overlooked because it is a key to success in many aspects of our lives. So sit up straight, everyone. Get ready. Let's do a bit of deep breathing as we get started.
Let's do 2 rounds of breathing. Always inhaling through the nose for 4, holding for 4, and exhaling through the mouth for 6.
Here we go.
Let's begin with our centering breath. Slowly inhale through the nose for 4, becoming present, envisioning calmness. Hold for 4, embracing tranquility. And exhale for 6 through the mouth, letting go of any disturbances. Hold for 2. Let's move into our empowering breath. Inhale through the nose for 4, visualizing energizing white light flowing through your body. Hold for 4, gathering your inner power. Exhale for 6, feeling empowered and ready. Hold for 2. Gently open your eyes and let's prepare to enter the dojo.
All right, we're now ready to enter the dojo. All right, so I'm ready now. I'm empowered. I got my breathing going. I'm ready to get things going. And Jim, I would love for you to kick us off. Let's go back to this discussion on education. I know we're going to cover a lot, but you said education was the pathway sort of for you to, for all the magic that really has happened in your life. So talk to us a little bit more about that education pathway and why this is so meaningful. We were talking about this in the opening. What a powerful title this is, and how much it means to you.
It is. It's such a powerful title. I'll share with you the origin of it. First of all, I have to take you back to the way I was raised and grew up. And yesterday, I spoke to a group of students in South Oak Cliff, Dallas. Challenging part of town. Every one of these kids comes from pretty much an underprivileged background, and they struggle. They have a hard time. And I stood on stage and shared with them that I was just like them. And they looked at me like I was from Mars because, they obviously, I didn't look like the demographic. I didn't sound like the demographic. And yet I told them my story about growing up in a 3-room shack, literally without plumbing, and having my mom bail on my father at 5 years old and basically abandoned us. And she went upscale to the trailer park because they have running water, and so as I told this story, I could slowly see them come around and say, okay, maybe he is a little bit like us. It didn't feel like it at first, but maybe we have more in common. This guy's lived through a whole bunch of adversity and challenge and all that stuff. And then I shared with him that the key to getting out of that existence was learning, was reading, was books. And it opened up an entirely new world for me that my brothers and sisters, no one else in my family had been able to experience. And I still live that experience today because of basically learning to learn. And know today I can do anything with anyone, anywhere in the world. It's just a matter of investing enough time and learning to be able to facilitate that, whatever it is I wish. So I shared that story with them. And Rhonda, I'll be happy to share also the origin of those 3 words, education is freedom. You want me to go there?
Yes, absolutely. Please do.
So the path clearly for me was the more I worked in school, the more effort I put into learning, the more opportunities kept opening up, whether it was opportunities to play sports or join different organizations and keep learning and keep learning. So I ended up in college, and then somehow kept that pace, that learning was the answer, and got into graduate school. Well, that leads, of course, to a pretty decent career coming out of college, and then a master's in business administration from Columbia. I was invited back to the university to teach a class. And here I am walking across campus, beautiful spring day, birds chirping, the flowers are blooming, and I'm feeling so good, so alive. And I've got a briefcase in my hand. I'm wearing a suit and tie, something I had never done on campus. I didn't even know how to dress. Literally, my peers had to take me to a store and say, Jim, you need decent shoes. Your shoes are like, the soles are flopping on them. And here I am. I mean, a completely transformed human being walking across campus. And I see a gentleman walking toward me, and he reminded me of me. Now, he was African American, but he looked just like me because he looked like hell. He looked like he had been up all night studying, and he looked like me back then. He had an armful of books. He, had jeans on and didn't know how to dress, just like me back then. And he had a T-shirt on, and his T-shirt said, "Education is freedom." And literally, that kid stopped me in my tracks. I stopped him. I shook his hand. I said, "You have no idea. You are me." And he looked at me like I was from Mars. He said, "I don't think so." I said, "No, no, no, no. You don't understand. You are me. I am education is freedom. What your T-shirt says, that is my story. And I am here today because of that." And it was such a powerful moment that it was one of those transformative moments that you say, I wouldn't be here walking across campus in a suit and tie, but for education. I went into that class, and then I realized, and I told those students something very different. I said, not only is education what got me here, but I now realize all I have out of this prestigious business school is a license to learn. I'm still learning. And I thought I was done. But this morning I ran into that gentleman in a T-shirt, and those 3 words made me realize I'm never done learning. That's the key to continued success, not just to what got me there, but that's the key. Education is freedom at any age is the key to a richer life, not richer in monetary terms, richer in experience and an ability to do it. So that's the origin of the title. Education is freedom. And my prayer is that everybody, this is why I wanted to get the book out into the market. I want anyone who sees that book on the shelf to have that same aha moment just from the power of those 3 words, even if they don't open the book.
Wow. Really, really powerful. And what an incredible story. And to know that happened, we talked about this 25 years ago. That's when you saw that kid that stopped you in your tracks. And now here 25 years later, you've got a book, right, by the title. That's incredibly impactful for a moment. So I'm going to ask you a follow-up question to that. But I want to first say good morning to Christopher. Good morning, Christopher. And Raven is out there as well. Hi, Raven. Great to see you. Mom's out there with her vanilla cinnamon cocktail this morning out there also. Great to see you out there as well. So as we're thinking about this, when you say education is freedom, are we talking about formal education? And because we know with today and all the technology and everything out there, there's a lot of different ways you can go. Are you speaking about formal education?
I always start by saying any knowledge is good knowledge. Any education, any way to get it. What we're on right now, I am literally on my phone. My darn computer was acting up on me today, so I'm on my phone. This phone is a portal to unlimited learning for anyone anywhere in the world. Khan Academy is free. You want to learn math? Khan Academy is right there for you to enhance your book studies, whatever, your classroom studies. There's so much potential in technology to learn. But there's a really important but here. There's a narrative today that you don't need school anymore. You don't need formal education. And maybe someday there will be accreditation systems There'll be measuring systems with technology to be able to bypass the formal education as we know it today. But don't be fooled. For practical purposes today and for the next 20 years, likely, that credentialing system that we have, the measurement system of our school, our undergraduate school, our high school, our college, our graduate school, the way they measure it, the network that you have coming from those institutions, the ability then, even if you're an entrepreneur, to raise money, because you're going to have to go to investors and they're going to look at your background, they're going to look at your credentials. I am a huge champion of formalized education supplemented by technology, not bypassed completely by technology.
That's a great answer, because I was gonna, there are a lot of different ways you can go. And so Roz and Murray, I want to get your thoughts on this as well. When you hear something like education and is freedom, right? And I love the title because I think it speaks to probably each of us in a very different way. So Roz, when you hear education is freedom, what does it say to you? And Murray, when you hear education is freedom, what does that say to you? So talk to us a little bit about that. And then I've got another question that we're going to go into for Jim.
I go back. I'm gonna jump in real quick. I go back to, I think about my grandparents that protested for us to have education so that we could have freedom. So I think about what they did for us to allow us to be able to go to schools, to have the books, to have the, that. Then my grandmother always said, and it's an old adage, knowledge is power. They can't take that can't be taken from you. And so those few words right there, have ignited me and kept me going. And as Jim said, I do hybrid learning. I go to YouTube University. I go to Uncle Google, as we call it, so passionately. There's no reason for someone not to have the knowledge. If for those who didn't even complete high school, you can go online to colleges and get your high school diploma and then go on and get your associate's degree. You don't even have to be in the classroom anymore to go to school. I'm gonna give you a perfect example. When I got my master's, I got it from the University of Phoenix. When Phoenix first started online school 10, 15 years ago, and everybody's like, oh my God, you're not physically going. But it was a good thing because at that time they were meeting my need. Mm-hmm. So yes, the in-person training was good, but the online training was meeting the needs of the people who didn't have the time and don't have the time to physically drive. So yes, the freedom, the power. When I have that knowledge, I walk different in a room. I talk different. I hold my shoulders different because I'm kind of cocky, because I know something. I'm walking into a room and I have the information and the knowledge to be able to have the conversation with other people. So that's my great. Few pennies on and thoughts.
Thank you for that. Murray, what does education is freedom say to you?
Oh my God, for me, it's everything because, my dad was actually the first educated person in his family. He was coming from a very, very poor family, couldn't actually get, to go to school. And the church actually back then paid for his, education locally, and he could actually manage to go to Europe and do his engineering degree. And that opened so many doors. And one of the things that he always, used to tell us, he said, I'm not going to leave you any money. The only thing I'm going to leave you is the education so that you can build on that to get your freedom and get the flexibility of doing what you want. So it has been really for us in my family, education is just I help. And so it's not just about the paper at the end of the day. It's really about developing ourselves, growing and really living, because if you don't continue to educate yourself, in a way you start to stagnate, and it becomes very difficult for you to keep this freedom that the formal education has given you. So it is very important to know that as well. Yes, the formal education is really important. That's the point of entry, but then you need to continue to grow to be able to open more door, and really continue to keep this freedom that you've actually created for you.
I love that. So, Jim, for me as well, and I'm going to ask you in a moment, what is it? How does it make you feel when you hear all of us speak to our different experiences about education as freedom? And for me, going into college and getting my nursing degree, and then on for my bachelor's and my master's, and then leading healthcare organizations, chief nursing officer, hospital CEO, and then consultant, both domestically and internationally, right? Education paved the way for all of that for me. And so you're right. It's not just about the financial freedom, but it is about the experiences that have enriched my life, that I don't know that I would have ever had those same experiences had I not taken the path of some of that education. So now you've heard all of us share what it means to us. Now come back and reflect on that.
First of all, it just makes my heart happy to hear everyone's interpretation, because while there's a common theme, everyone has a little different piece of this in their heart in terms of what it means to them personally, or their community, or their country. And so I just love hearing everyone's unique, slightly unique, but incredibly consistent interpretation of what education is freedom means. In fact, let me just share one thing. I'm playing with an idea. I was almost ready to launch it yesterday, but I want to make sure I do this right. I'm wanting to do a scholarship that I can lay out there for young people and reach them where they live, which is social media. And I want to lay out this idea that if you will tell me just like you just did on TikTok or on Instagram, give me your video interpretation of what education is freedom means to you. Can you imagine having a library of 500,000 young people, each doing what you just did, and capturing all of these heartfelt expressions of why education really means freedom? I think that would be a priceless gathering of information. So I started down this path thinking, well, this is a way to reach young people. And I thought, man, can you imagine building this library of thousands of people telling you why it's so important to them, and then sharing that with others, having young people tell young people why it's important. It's just, I'm so excited about that idea. So haven't done it yet, but I plan to.
Well, you've got our 3 messages now to kick it off.
I know. Exactly.
For sure. See, timing is everything. That's why you didn't launch it yesterday, because you needed those 3 to get started. So exactly. I'm interested in knowing. So education is freedom. You went on to lead some of the largest Fortune 500 companies out there, 7-11 and Blockbuster. What does leadership then mean to you?
Leadership is learning. That's the irony. One of the things that I discovered after leading 2 very, very large global enterprises is that all of the leadership books I had ever read missed the mark, because they all talk about how to be a leader, like you can just learn it and then now I've got it and I'm a good leader. No, leadership is about constant learning, because business especially is about, or whatever you're leading, the world is constantly changing. And so there is no one leadership style. Whatever leadership style may have worked in 1975 probably doesn't work in 2025. And so the role of a leader is to adapt to change. In fact, I've coined this expression that I call CEO. The role of a CEO is to embrace change and to be able to manage through change. Change equals opportunity. If you look at, so that's what I've coined the expression. Change equals opportunity is a better acronym for CEO than Chief Executive Officer, because that role in leadership is all about being able to adapt to change, having the confidence to weather a storm, good change or bad change, having the clarity of communications inbound and outbound to be able to lead people through a change of any sort. And so, yeah, that's my my definition of leadership is learning, because learning is what is fundamentally the key to being able to embrace change.
Man, so good. So good. I love all of that. And Roz, did you have a response to that? Because you're shaking your head like.
I think that was a good
When
head
he said
shake.
the role of the
Like this.
leader is to adapt to change.
Yes.
He said there, if you don't adapt to change, then the organization dies. The organization doesn't grow. You know, people.
Exactly right.
You know, people have to learn how to adapt from internet to AI, and if you don't pick it up, you might get left behind. You know, Amazon was a great example of that, from books to other things. And look, I'm just thinking, as he said, adapting. And a lot of us get complacent. And that's where the end of a lot of times for businesses and leaders come, when they don't adapt. Thank you so much. My mind was just like going when he said that.
I was the same, because I think the only constant that we have right now is change. So as a leader, if we can't adapt to change, it's very difficult to lead, because there's so much complexity right now. Things are changing quickly, especially with the technology, and we are in the middle of this fourth industrial revolution, which is really bringing a lot of complexity. So change is the only constant. So we have to get leaders to adapt to change and be able to manage through the different changes and catch up on the speed at which things are moving.
Well,
Exactly.
I think that's perfect. And Jim, you were going to add?
Yeah, I was going to add that a lot of times, as I've been describing this role of chief executive officer, change equals opportunity, being able to adapt, people haven't made the direct link back to my book, An Education is Freedom. But here's that link. Let me share it with you. As we all know, change is hard and people resist it, especially bad change. Easy change is good. Oh, wow, something nice happened. That's great. I love that. Something bad happens. Whoa, what happens? Well, let's go into the science of that. There's a portion of our brain called the amygdala, and that is what kept us from being eaten by a tiger. It triggers the flight or fight syndrome that we have, the natural self-protection. It's there for our protection. It goes all the way back to us as cave people. But that portion of our brain is still very active today, even though we don't have a natural predator. So what happens, a change occurs, and it's almost like being attacked by a tiger. We react in some fashion to that change, and it triggers that natural human instinct to resist, to run away, or to fight. You see it in the boardroom. And you look around and you think, why is this person so aggressive? Why are they fighting? Or why are they shutting down and basically, maybe not physically running away, but they've disconnected. They won't listen. Well, all of that response comes from fear. It's that portion of our brain that made fear help save our life in certain circumstances, but that same thing that triggers fear triggers a bad reaction. So it's not the change that matters, it's the response to change that separates winners from losers. So how do you eliminate that fear? Through knowledge. When you're afraid of the dark, you turn on the light and you look around and you say, oh, I didn't have anything to be afraid of. I have a light now. Light takes away darkness. Knowledge takes away fear. I know this sounds ridiculously simple, but it is simple. That knowledge is the antidote to fear, and fear is the thing that makes people's response to change cause them to fail and lose rather than win.
Wow. Wow. Okay. So I can't even believe we're at the halfway mark, but we are. And so I'm going to take a quick commercial break. And when we come back, I'm going to dive a little bit more into this. When we come back, we're going to go into our mastering the mat segment, which is about strategy. What do we do? So you've broken it down beautifully for us that we have to deal with the fear. We've got to learn to manage change a little bit differently. And then how do we do that? So, and I know you've got 3 C's that talk about that as well. And so we're going to do that after we come back from our 1-minute commercial break. All right, everybody stay tuned.
The challenges that come with being a leader can be a heavy burden to bear. If you are like most leaders I know, then you are constantly grappling with turnover, you're grappling with long hours, the constant state of change, trying to keep your team engaged and productive, and sometimes burnout that is disruptive. Well, here's the truth. Hope is not a strategy. The only way that you're going to gain the impact, influence, and insight you desire is to create it. The good news is you can do it without ever stepping onto a mat. With LEADJITSU Executive Coaching, the only person that you will be responsible for grappling with is you. Step into the dojo. LEADJITSU, the vision, artistry, and discipline of superb leadership.
All right, so it really is a perfect segue into this discussion. And we're talking, thank you for making the connection between change and education, right? Because the two go together hand in hand. You had the great fortune when you were at 7-11 and started this foundation. Many people don't even know, Jim, that this education is freedom is actually a foundation. And so you had the great fortune of starting that when you were at 7-11, and you got an incredible person to come on board with you. I'm not even going to say who it is. I'm just going to play the clip, and I want you to tell us how in the world did you make this happen? Because when I found out, I was so inspired. So let's look at this brief clip to really show the power of education as freedom.
To our people, for all the people of the world, there is no question that the Education is Freedom Foundation will be an important force in making the world one world.
Wow. I can just say, wow. How did you make that happen?
It still gives me goosebumps to watch that video. Well, we started the foundation with an amazing group of people. Some of my peers in business, August Bush, obviously the chairman of Anheuser-Busch at the time. Al Brew was CEO of Frito-Lay. Jeff Rich, CEO of ACS company here in Texas. And we had Stedman Graham was on our board. He's a dear friend, still is a dear friend, wrote the foreword to my book. He was really my muse in encouraging me to write the book all these years. And Stedman at one point, he's always been such an inspiration. And he kept saying, Jim, you've got to think big. This is These three words have the power to change the world. You've got to think big. And I said, well, okay, here's big. What about if we ask someone like Nelson Mandela, who is literally at the time, the living example of the power of education? And he said, well, Oprah and I are going to go over and we're going to be seeing him next month. If you want me to ask him, I will. And he said, actually, better yet, why don't you ask him? I couldn't make the trip, but I sent the very first iPad over, and I literally bought the iPad, gave it to Stedman, and I said, here's my message. And I had done some research, and I found is that Nelson Mandela, when he was in prison, I can't remember if it was Paulsmore or anyway, one of the two prisons that he was in, he had a prison guard come up to him and scold them because they were all sitting around studying law. Now here's talk about a bad situation. You're a political prisoner, right? Remember what I mentioned about change? It's not the change itself, it's how you respond to it. So how many people go to prison and keep their head up and say, I'm going to use this as an opportunity to study law? I mean, you can't come up with a better example for how to have favorable, positive response to change, as bad as that change could be. Can't imagine worse circumstance. So this warden walked in to the prisoners as they were all sitting around studying and surrounded by books. And he scolded them. And he said, you guys have turned this prison into a library. I'm going to take it back to a prison. And he made them get rid of their books and whatever it was. And so I recounted that story to Nelson Mandela via video and said, I want to use the Education is Freedom Foundation to replace prisons with libraries, to replace prisons with schools, to take away terrorists. Instead of training terrorists, let's train teachers. Let's use knowledge as the antidote to fear and anger and hate and violence. Let's turn that cycle around and create a cycle of knowledge, which leads to understanding, which leads to collaboration, cooperation, which leads to peace. And so I believe that message, of course, resonated with President Mandela. He unfortunately was beginning to have some health problems. He wasn't able to join us at Radio City Music Hall for the launch of our foundation, but he agreed to film that video for us and encourage us the best, and to send the message of support that education is freedom and it's a power that truly can change the world.
Wow, what an incredible story. And what an impactful way that you were able, you've galvanized, Stedman and, other folks who are like, this is powerful. These three words, education is freedom. So we know education is freedom. You have this incredible platform. We are in a state of constant change today. How do we do it, Jim? How do we do it? So it's easy to talk about it, right? I should change and go with the change. How do I do that?
You're helping me right now, because what I think we need to do is to change the whole narrative from this idea that education is not important. It's no longer important. Just go get a job. There's all of this negative stuff out there. And if you think about where we are as a society, we are overwhelmed with fear unnecessarily. I went back in the book and I quoted FDR at his inauguration speech. The only thing we have to fear is fear itself. Mm-hmm. And if you think about it, you turn on the news, it's just a constant barrage of fear. Why? Because fear works. It sells subscriptions. It attracts viewers. Train wrecks attract a crowd, and unfortunately, fear sells. Fear also is used by those in office because it's easy. Sometimes it's easier than hope to motivate with fear. If you believe that the antidote to fear is knowledge, then the more we can spread the word that knowledge really is a better course of action, we truly can turn around that cycle of fear, anger, hostility, violence. We can turn that around with knowledge, but we need to spread the word. And this is a message of hope in this book. Education is freedom in itself. Those three words are a message of hope. So if we can get hope to replace fear, knowledge to replace misunderstanding and falsehoods, then the world will be a better place. So what you're doing, Rhonda, Roz, Ray, what you're doing right now is helping by spreading the word.
Wow, thank you. Really powerful. And I want to just go to Ray and see if you have any thoughts before we go into, and I'm going to ask Jim to talk to us a little bit more. He mentioned the 3 C's earlier, but I'm going to ask him to go into a little bit more depth.
Yeah, I just wanted to comment on fear itself, and I've myself coming, from Gabon, where I was born, and really working in different, country with different cultures. I just realized that, just like Jim was saying, is that, they sell you fear. I still remember when I was ready to go and work in South Africa, the kind of conversation I was having with people here, it was as if I was going to get killed, when going there, because on TV that's what they sell, that they're telling you that South Africa is dangerous, there's violence, there's anything. And so I decided not to listen to it, and I went and worked there, and I can say that that was my most rewarding experience. 4 years working there. So sometimes it's just about really feeling the fear and doing it, and really get the experience yourself. And I think personally, if you do that, your energy actually will attract the right, the right energy as well. And just based on this experience, I think just staying positive and telling myself whatever is going to happen, I'm just going to go and experience myself, and I'm going with a positive attitude. Things really worked really well. So it is very important that we understand that the response to fear is actually being open and just feeling this fear, doing it anyway, and you just realize that nothing happened to you.
Yeah, we fear so many things that never ever happen. I mean, we spend so much time in anxiety and fear. So, Roz, what about you? Anything you want to add before we move into this next portion?
I just want to say really quickly. 10 years ago, you talked about fear in group people. Just to really almost shut down. Now I think people.
Can you hear me? Your audio is kind of. I can barely hear you. Your audio is breaking up a little bit.
Can you hear me better now if I get closer?
I think so, yes.
As I was saying really quickly, that years ago, fear would grip people and they would move. But now I think people use fear as fuel and an opportunity. So I think the notion and the middle part behind fear is changing, as you said, it's changing and evolving into an opportunity versus fear being a failure. Fear is an opportunity. That's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
Yeah, no, it's interesting. And I guess it's different for everyone, right? Depending on where you are. But I do think there's something that you said, Jim, in that they use fear to their advantage. It's a manipulative tactic in many occasions. So I want you to talk us through your 3 C's, because I feel like this is something that's really powerful. It's tangible. It's something that we can hold on to and take away. So talk to us. I'm going to put it on screen, and then Jim, you can share with us. Talk to us about your 3 C's.
Sure. The idea of embracing change is we've already discussed. It is the key to survival as an individual, as a corporation, as a society, because change is going to happen. As Bryce said, the one thing that's constant is change. The second one, the confidence factor. I have a whole chapter on confidence, but I led into the confidence chapter with a chapter on fear, because you can't have confidence unless you can eliminate fear. And fear is a killer of individuals, of careers, of corporations, of whole societies succumb to fear that is irrational many times, but it causes resistance, it causes inertia, etc. So the the antidote to fear then is knowledge. In fact, a friend of mine, Harvey McKay, who wrote the book "Swim with the Sharks Without Being Alive," being eaten alive, and and I was with him one time. And I told him about this book that I was writing about education is freedom, and he said, "Let me give you a gift." He said, "Tell your readers that tell them to prepare to win." And I said, "Well, okay. Well, what does that mean?" He said, "Think about it. 3 words: prepare to win." Preparation eliminates fear because it helps build confidence. So when Tom Brady goes into a game, he is prepared, and that's why he is so confident. And and that same rule applies to anything. If you're going to go in and take a test, the more prepared you are, the better you'll do. If you're going to take on a challenge, walk into a boardroom, if you're not prepared, you're not going to have confidence. If you don't have confidence, you can't be successful. And so that preparation is a big part of eliminating fear through confidence. Well, how do you prepare? You'll learn. You gather knowledge, right? And it all comes back to that same theme: education is freedom. Well, then both of those things don't matter at all. It doesn't matter how much you embrace change or have confidence as a leader if you don't have clarity of communications. And that's clarity inbound in terms of listening and outbound in terms of speaking. So you could have the best plan in the world and you can't have it executed because either you didn't understand the needs of what you're trying to change in the beginning because you weren't listening, or even if you have a best plan that's the most effective, no one can follow it if they can't understand it. So clarity or simplicity of communication is critically important. Those 3 things I would characterize as kind of the secret to success in virtually anything that you're taking on.
Yeah. Wow. Really powerful. So change, clarity, change, confidence, and clarity. And all 3 of those are really powerful in their own right. But together, it's kind of like that secret. What is that special sauce? 2 off beef patty, special sauce. It's like the special sauce. It's like the special sauce, right? That I can't give you the recipe for it, or I'll kill you. Only you gave us the recipe, so we appreciate that. So, Roz and Marae, quickly, your thoughts on the special sauce. Change, confidence, and clarity, and then we'll go into our ending segment after that.
Really don't know what to add. I think it's really complete because I mentioned the change, which is constant. So really understanding that we have to adapt. And, obviously there is fear that is creeping in. So the confidence aspect needs to be there as well. So building this confidence and making sure that we use fear to actually give us, more determination in a way. And if we don't know where we're going, I mean, we're going to go to the wrong place, and maybe generate more fear and back down. So the clarity is very important. So I think it's just mind blowing.
Yeah, I love those three C's. Roz, they say if you don't know where you're going, any old road will take you there.
And I don't want to waste my time getting on any old road. I want clarity. but yeah, what the piece of my favorite part is the confidence, like I talked about earlier. When you get that knowledge, it changes my whole persona. It just does something for me. It's fuel for my fire. It does something to the chemicals in my body. And when I have that information, I'm unstoppable. For me, I am unstoppable. So these three C's, I love them, and no one can follow you if they don't understand. That right there was the top of the mountain for me. So yeah, I love the three C's. It was crystal clear for me. Thank you, Jim.
Awesome.
Thank you. I'll add one more. I'll add one more little blurb I put in the book about clarity. And Einstein had a great way of breaking into simple terms. He said, "If you can't explain it to a 6-year-old, you don't understand it well enough yourself."
Right.
That's it.
Exactly.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So we're going to go into our closing segment here on the Leaders Code. And so what this segment is, we've had a lot of discussion. LEADJITSU Rise in the Dojo is really based on, our LEADJITSU program. And it's really about helping organizations elevate and advance leadership mastery. At the center, at the core of that is what we call LEADJITSU Leaders Code. It is our way of helping leaders do all of the things that we talked about today. How do you develop that confidence? How do you embrace change? How do you, navigate those difficulties? All of that is what the LEADJITSU Leaders Code is for. So every segment or every show at the end, we choose a code, which one resonates with each of us. So we'll do that right after the introduction after this. All right. So let's talk about the Leaders Code and which one resonates with you. So as I know that you all have had a chance to think about this. I'll start because I've been thinking about this a bit, and I'm thinking about, there are two that really resonate strongly with me. But the first one is resilient spirit, because I think there are so many times when things happen to us, and that's code number 15, Leaders Code 15. Resilient spirit says, LEADJITSU leaders exhibit unyielding spirit in the face of setbacks and failures, much like the jiu-jitsu practitioner's determination to get back up after being taken down. This principle emphasizes resilience and the ability to recover from those difficulties. Why that connects with this conversation to me is there's always an excuse not to move forward, not to get educated, not to advance, not to do whatever, right? Because something's in your way, somebody's being mean, someone put a roadblock in front of you. You can take that and accept that, or you can manifest this resilient spirit. And as Murray said so well, feel that fear, deal with that difficulty, and do it anyway. Right. So that's the one that resonates with me. So, Jim, I'm going to come to you last, because then I'm also going to have you do your sort of exit and make sure that people know how they can connect with you. So, Roz, which one for you?
I had three, but I'm only going to do one. Number 13, bridge communication. Leaders commit to bridge communication, recognizing the crucial role of clear, effective interacting and connecting. I think that's what Jim was talking about today, is that if you are not clear with instructions, just like, he said before, who's going to follow you? Mm-hmm. Who is going to follow you if you are not giving a clear direction to where we're going? Why should I follow you as a leader and you don't know where you're going? I'm done.
I am not going to follow. I am not going to follow you into that ditch. I refuse. Not doing it. All right. Thank you so much, Roz. Love that one. Marae?
So for me, today, flow adaptability, and I'm just going to read here. Leaders exhibit flow adaptability, the ability to fluidly adjust to new challenges and environments akin to adaptive and flexible nature. So for me, it has been really the highlight, and we talked about leader being able to adapt to change, because that's, as I said, change is the only constant. So if as a leader you can adapt, that's a huge positive for for you to start the leadership journey and get the confidence, and also make sure people actually follow you as well, because they can see that you can adapt and you reassure them. Obviously, you'll need the clarity and the vision, but I think it's an important step for a leader.
All right. Awesome. And last but not least, Jim, if you'll share with us, which of the leaders code resonates with you?
Well, Rhonda, as you know, I told you before the show, I said the problem I've got with picking one is that in my book, I feel like I referenced all of them, that they were all critically important. But she said, no, you have to pick one. So I'm going to pick one, and it'll probably surprise you because it's not immediately apparent that this one is captured with the Education is Freedom with the book. I'm going to pick harmony and inclusion. And here's why. As I wrote the book, we shared the three elements of what to learn. I also have 3 C's of how to learn, and that's confidence, clarity, things like that, critical thinking, being able to discern truth from fiction. Those are the how to learn elements, and those are pretty easy to understand. But I was challenged by friends to say, well, you haven't really told people why. Why is this book important? Why is education is important? Why is learning important? And it comes down to, we live in a big, beautiful world called the Earth. And it's full of people that are very unique and different. And the why to learn, I think, come down to 3 more C's. And can I share those with you now, Rhonda?
Absolutely.
All right. For the why to learn, and why is education important? Why is traditional education important? Why is it important to go to school? Why is it important to constantly learn? 3 things. 1, because we live in this big world and we're not all by ourselves, collaboration is critically important. That speaks to your and inclusion. You can't collaborate with people you're fighting with or don't like, right? You have to recognize that together we're better than one. I use the example of a symphony orchestra. I learned how to play an instrument as a very young person, and I learned how to play the trumpet. And I was terrible. I was trying to play Beatles song on a trumpet, right? It was terrible. And then I was allowed to sit in with an orchestra, a youth orchestra. And it was miraculous. My little squeaky trumpet sounded with the power of others, sounded beautiful. We made beautiful music. And even if one of us made a little mistake, you couldn't hear it in the harmony of the whole orchestra. And that's what collaboration is all about. People coming together, because together we're better than one. We're better than we are individually. People forget that, but that's why knowledge is so important. You can't collaborate without knowing others, which is the 2nd C. You'll love this one. It is cultural literacy. I've redefined the whole concept of diversity. We've talked about how weaponization of these things has occurred, of things like DEI or diversity. And you step back from this, if an alien came to Earth, they'd say, what are you guys fighting about? This is crazy. This makes no sense. How is this a bad thing? Right? So I've said, well, let's step back from it. Forget about words that we've used in the past. What it really comes down to is, I want to understand people that are not like me, Because if I surround myself with everybody just like me, I'm in a little tiny bubble, and that's a tiny portion of this world. I want to know people that are as different from me as possible. And when I learn from them, that's why I called it cultural literacy. Because the more I can learn from somebody with a different culture, a different religion, a different ethnicity, a different part of the world, I now take the richness of what's good in them with me, and I become a patchwork quilt of every human that I've encountered across this beautiful planet,
Wow.
which makes me hopefully a better person. Now, I'll challenge anybody to fight with that concept and call cultural literacy a bad thing, right? And that's, I think that was at the spirit of so much of the woke movement and the diversity movement and DEI. The spirit of it is, let's learn from each other and be more receptive to each other. So I've renamed that cultural literacy.
Okay.
And then the third element, the third C, none of that even matters if a person is just bad to the core, right? So what I've been trying to impart through this book, and when I talk to young people especially, is that character, those elements that we learn, whether we learn them in church, we learn them from our family, we learn them through our peers in the community. Our character is, I try to make it simple for young people to see, what the difference is between Coke and an unbranded cola, or the difference between Frito-Lay chips and some unbranded potato chip. You know the difference. That brand tells you what's inside. It says there's a quality product in here that I can trust. Well, your character is your brand. It's what people see and feel. And so character is the third element. So I use those three as an example of why to learn. And if we embrace collaboration, cultural literacy, and recognize the power of character, our character, and own it, then we will have harmony and more inclusion across the planet.
Absolutely beautiful. What a great way to wrap up that Leaders Code segment. Thank you so much. We're going to come back and just do our, thank you for being here and get the audience to make sure that they are aware how they can connect with you. But first, let's wrap up the Leaders Code. And if y'all didn't write that down, I'm going to need y'all to go back and listen to the replay on that one. What's really important about that, and that reason that outro is important, is because you need your own copy of the Leaders Code. So please go download it at leaderscode15.com, because these are principles that we want you to integrate into your life, your leadership, and your general way of living. And so, wow, what a powerful conversation. Thank you so much. I need to read Mom's last comment. I didn't do a lot of reading of comments today because our discussion was so rich. I didn't want to take us off track too much, but Mom said, my takeaway, James Keys brought the keys to change, confidence and clarity. Very appropriate name. So, and then Christopher said, rich mental nutrition and epic truth for breakfast. So with that, thank you so much for being here. How can people connect with you and find you on the internet to read more about what you're doing in the world?
Well, I've got a website, jameswkeys.com. I would encourage everyone, if you like the theme that we're sharing here, to help me spread the word by buying the book, but not buying the book to keep it, buying the book to give it. I want this to be a gift book. Something that you read, hopefully, and say, wow, I know somebody who needs this, and share it, and have them then turn around and share it with somebody else. That's the whole idea. My mission is to spread the word. So if you can order the book through Amazon, Barnes & Noble, all those sites, you can get to it via jameswkeys.com. My Instagram, TikTok, all that stuff is at jkeysauthor. I'm out there having fun. I just posted a pic. Going to be visiting with some of Snoop Dogg's people this weekend. I'm working on a little project, and he was kind enough to have a picture of holding the book. And if you want to reach young people where they live, have Snoop Dogg hold your book. So I think I'm having, as you can tell, I'm having some fun with this mission.
You're having some fun, and you are incredibly inspiring. And for those of you, we did not talk about this. So I know Raven said excellent show out there. Christopher said sensational. James, bravo. Superb work this morning. For those of you that don't know, education for Jim really is freedom. He actually has his own jet or plane or something that he jets around in, and he flies it himself. So there you go. Talk about education is freedom. So thanks so much, everybody, for tuning in for another episode of LEADJITSU Rise in the Dojo. We'll see you all back here next week, same time, same station. And until then, continue doing great things to lead yourself in your life and wherever you lead and serve others. Have a great rest of your week, everybody.